Josh, are you gonna check on the quorum?
Yes,
Do
I
a head
am
count.
going to do that. I would ask
Okay.
anyone that can rename themselves to do so if your name is not clear, and I will double check that against the roster. And we have 2 phone call-in numbers. So if the 760 number would not mind letting me know who they are, I will rename you. You are allowed to talk, 760 number. All right, well, that may not work.
It might
At
be
any rate,
self-muted. If they're self-muted, you can hit *9 to unmute yourself. 760 area code.
I think people are having trouble unmuting themselves. That feature seems to be disabled, as well as the chat box. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
As a phone caller, you're listed as an attendee, so you're muted unless we unmute you. But the chat feature usually not available for a phone callers.
okay, no worries then on those
This is for
those 2 phone callers. We can.
This is for a computer call-in. It's still chat shows as disabled.
Okay, I'll follow up with folks afterwards. I've got your numbers. All right. Without further ado.
Okay, then should we call the meeting to order?
I will confirm quorum.
Generally at
Sorry.
10:37 a.m. Thursday, October 22nd, the Zoom meeting of the Active Transportation Working Group with SANDAG. We're probably not going to do welcome and introductions with everybody, but as Josh was mentioning, we're going to confirm our quorum. We can see everyone has in the panelists here, and many of you are in attendee mode. So thank you for joining. Let's see, moving down the agenda, approval of meeting minutes. Do we have a quorum to be able to do that? Josh, do you think we have a quorum?
Let me take a look.
I do.
Okay, that sounds good.
Excellent.
So meeting minutes are attached in the agenda packet from our last meeting of June 13th, 2019. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes? We haven't heard from anybody in the attendee group. Are they allowed to?
Everybody who's an attendee cannot talk.
Okay, so we need to click on them to allow with the hand raised?
Yes, please.
Okay, got it. I think I clicked on you, Kyle. You're the first hand I saw.
Yeah, so we're not able to make any chats. The chat function's disabled. Is that supposed to be that way?
I believe that's what I heard.
All right, just checking.
Okay.
Yeah, your members need to be promoted to panelists, please, if you guys can assist with
Okay,
that.
so we'll monitor raising the hands and go that way. Adnan, calling on you. You have a hand raised.
Yes, I just want to introduce myself. I'm with UCSD. I'm attending this meeting for a project. I was just wondering, same question as I believe it was Kyle. The chat is disabled. It'd be really helpful if the chat was enabled so we can ask any questions.
Yeah, it seems like we're gonna have to go with the raised hand to answer any questions and get engagement on that way. Ah, chat is working. Okay. Still back to the agenda. We're trying to get through minute approval. Any member from the working group want to make a motion to approve the minutes? And again, you'll have to, I think, raise your hand, then we'll be able to click on you.
This is Kristen Hockham. I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Kristen.
I think we're in the process of promoting voting members to panelists. So that should make this move a little smoother once we get that done. So sorry, bear with us.
No worries. Thank you, SANDAG and Chris. We have a motion from Kristen. Anyone would like to second it from the committee members?
I'll second.
Thank you, Andy. And then let's see, I think we talked about for a roll call, we will read down everybody's name who is a committee member for the vote. Was that correct, SANDAG production?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, motion from Kristen, second from Andy. I'm just gonna read down the list that I can see of folks. Austin, who were you with? I'm sorry. Austin Silva.
City of Poway.
Poway, there you go. Thank you. See that? Yes on the motion for the minutes? Yeah, why don't everyone rename yourself as well with your jurisdiction? Sam, Vista.
Yes.
Thank you. Brandon, Caltrans.
Yes.
Let's see, Chad, is that County of San Diego?
Chad is with UCSD.
Chad Spoon?
Yep, it's County of San Diego.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, Chad.
Okay. Howard?
Yes.
City of Oceanside. Thank you. Danielle, Circulate. Okay, how about Minji, Santee? Nope, move on. Nathan Schmidt, Carlsbad?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Paul Romero, El Cajon? Okay. Are there any other jurisdictions that I did not call on as I was going down the list? If you could either raise your hand or wave into your camera. You can raise it in the chat function or the panelist function. Oh, what's going on with here? Austin, you were asking, we don't vote if you were not in attendance. That's generally correct. Howard Lee, Coronado.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think anyone else is going to vote on that. So everyone who was here voted yes. Let's move on. Agenda item 3, public comments and communications. And this is for members of the public to address the working group for any matter not on the agenda. Is there anybody who wants to? Nicole Burgess.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify if Bike SD is a voting member of this working group. I believe Judy Tentor was, but perhaps not. Just clarifying. You can get back later.
Yes.
Yeah, you certainly were a member. I'm not sure if it was voting or not.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chris. And then we called on Kyle. Kyle was here. Okay. Great. Thank you. Anybody else? Let me see. I'm going to lower your hand, Nicole. And I don't see anything else. So we'll move on to item 4. 2021 regional plan update and upcoming outreach. Is that Rachel? Oh no, you're the next one.
Yeah, I can give a quick overview of that. So
Okay, thanks, Chris.
we're having a little trouble with our mail list. So hopefully you guys got a message from me yesterday afternoon with the incorrect title. So let me send out a refresher on that. But next Thursday, the 29th, we have kind of the online version of the, oops, let me turn my camera on. We have the online version of the big meeting we had at the library a while back. So to make it work, we're pairing up with 2 working groups at a time. So there'll be 1 hour in the morning. I believe active transportation is 11 a.m. to 11:50 on the 29th. You should be receiving, if you haven't gotten one already, a Zoom invitation for that. And all folks are encouraged to join up and lend your voice to that. And then in the afternoon on the 29th, from 4 to 5, there will be a meeting of all of the groups, and in the morning we'll be asked to select a spokesperson. So we'll take care of that then, but then you can hear kind of a synopsis of what all the other working groups had said throughout the day, and there will be people to help facilitate those conversations as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that update on that and the Zoom invitations. Next Thursday, week from today, 1 meeting at 11, and then another bigger wrap-up meeting at 4. Each one is about an hour. That's that, and you'll hear some more specifics on what's going on with the regional plan from Rachel Kennedy. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments on that from the committee or members of the public? Okay, great. We'll move along to item number 5, comprehensive multimodal corridor plans with Rachel.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for inviting me to your meeting today to provide some information on the CMCPs, the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plans that SANDAG is embarking on. My name is Rachel Kennedy. I am the Corridor Planning Manager for SANDAG, and I'm going to share my screen here and pull up a presentation. Are you able to see a PowerPoint presentation now?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, good. And let me see if I can get into show it. Okay. To provide a little bit of background on, what are comprehensive multimodal corridor plans, the SANDAG board back in fall of last year took an action to provide funding to prepare a number of comprehensive multimodal corridor plans over the next 5 years. And these CMCPs, as we usually refer to them, are integrated multimodal transportation plans, and they align with state goals and funding. They kind of take a deeper dive into some of the complete corridors that SANDAG has been developing for the 2021 regional plan, and look at things from a multimodal perspective. So active transportation, transit, local streets and roads, highways, technology components. We're in a process right now where we are developing the 2021 regional plan. So these corridor plans that we're currently working on will build on the transportation network that's being envisioned as part of that regional plan, and kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive into these specific study areas and additional transportation solution recommendations that come from these studies would feed into the next regional plan. CMCPs are suggested by the California Transportation Commission to be competitive for SB1 and other state and federal funding. So SANDAG has historically been proactive about preparing initial documents and studies so that we can be competitive for state fundings, and the CMCPs are another tool in order to be that can be used in order to be competitive for SB1 funding. So in thinking about corridor plans, here in the SANDAG region, this is kind of our first time that we're working on CMCPs, but one of the documents that we have in our region, the North Coast Corridor Plan, is something that we can kind of think of as a first generation CMCP. So, a number of years ago, sometimes when corridor studies were done, particularly if they were done to take a look at a certain highway corridor, the focus might have mainly been around the highway itself. But when the North Coast Corridor Plan was created, it looked not only at improvements on I-5, but also improvements needed in the low-sand rail corridor, active transportation improvements, how the local streets and roads connected with I-5. So that's sort of a starting point, I guess, so you can kind of think of documents with the CMCPs, and these CMCPs kind of take this a step further. Here we wanted to show an image. This is an image that you may have seen in some of the presentations that we've been having on the 2021 regional plan. But we're trying to take a look at complete corridors. So if we take a look at this image here, kind of moving from the right over to the left, you see a local, roadway network with pedestrian amenities, sidewalks, crosswalks, transit stations connecting to both maybe local buses, flexible fleets, as well as to more high-speed regional transit that you can kind of note underground there towards the middle of the picture. There's also bike lanes that are featured, and as we move over towards the left of the photograph, you see here a highway, but it's not a traditional highway. The lanes here are flexible and can be repurposed throughout the day depending on the needs at different times of day. So if you look at the signage there, you can see that this might be, let's say, in a peak period, you might have the shoulder opened for some traffic to use, HOV lanes, perhaps a specific lane for transit vehicles to be using. In the future, the technology will be moving forward to have connected vehicles and perhaps a lane for those vehicles that are able to sync up with each other and perhaps travel a little closer together, and then also lanes that are kind of for all different users. This image here shows the integration of different modes in kind of a more urban setting. So with the regional plan, we're also looking at mobility hubs, which provide opportunities to bring a number of different transportation uses together in one place that can interact with each other to provide easy and effective travel choices to users, and then also bring together different amenities. So you might be able to have, a package delivered to lockers that would be there. Some of them could maybe be even climate controlled. So you could perhaps order groceries online, take your transit, get off at the station, pick up your groceries, and then, walk the 5 blocks to your house. So these concepts will be, continue to be examined in the CMCP process. So we have right now our phase 1 CMCPs that we refer to and are shown here on this map. We have 2 rounds of CMCPs that the board has allocated funding for. The first phase is being worked on now, and these CMCPs are anticipated to be completed in summer or fall of 2021. Moving here through the map and highlight the different study areas that the teams are working on. We have the first study area, which we're referring to as our South Bay to Sorrento corridor, which includes the existing Blue Line trolley corridor, I-5 South, 805, and the potential future Purple Line corridor that's been talked about. The second area you can see in green is the C to Santee study area, which focuses here along the SR 52 and trolley corridor. The third is our San Vicente corridor, which is featured in orange and focused along the State Route 67 corridor. Up in North County, we have our North County corridor, which includes the Sprinter corridor, SR 78, and some of the western portions of State Route 76, as well as a portion here of the Coaster Losan corridor. And then the last one, number 5, down here in blue, is the Central Mobility Hub and Connections corridor. And this is here centered in the Midway, Point Loma, Ocean Beach area, and we'll be looking at a potential new Central Mobility Hub, either located at the Navy Old Town campus, also referred to as NAVOR, or at the ITC site, which is near Washington Street. This study area also includes the airport, and we'll be looking at additional connections that can be provided to the airport. Additionally, we have a second phase of CMCPs that are planned and outlined here. These will be happening mostly in the fiscal year 24 and 25 timeframe. So with the CMCP program, the CTC has put together some guidelines that we are following and preparing those documents. And those include 12 different policy areas that all the teams will be considering as they are developing their plans. We're looking for these plans to have a multimodal focus, to be incorporating active transportation and micromobility, to be considering economic development, housing needs, affordable housing needs, improving air quality and reducing greenhouse gases, and as well as safety and security. So you can see within these policy areas, the wide range of elements that need to be considered in the development of these plans. So our schedule is featured here, and each of the teams, we have the 5 teams, has been working, they worked in the spring to develop their work plans. In the summer and fall, folks are focusing on data analysis, looking at existing conditions, existing needs, beginning their stakeholder engagement. And we are having a series of presentations to the Transportation Committee. We have had 2 of those presentations so far. The North County Corridor presented in September. The South Bay to Sorrento team presented this past Friday to Transportation Committee. And then the remaining teams will be presenting in November, December, and January at the upcoming Transportation Committee meetings. The presentations so far have been, kind of at the higher level, providing background information, demographic information, transportation information, a lot of their kind of existing conditions data that the teams have been gathering. So that's where most of the teams are in the process of bringing their consultants on board that will be helping to assist in the preparation of the documents. In the fall and winter of early next year, we'll be conducting community outreach. And then in spring and summer of 2021, the teams will be bringing their draft CMCPs to the Transportation Committee and looking to finalize those documents in the summer or fall timeframe of next year. So that concludes my presentation. I wanted to sort of share kind of a higher level presentation of the CMCP program as the different teams get further into their process. We may be coming back to this working group to share some specific information or seek input from this working group. Additionally, we have, as part of the CMCP teams, we have a group of subject matter experts, which includes a team of active transportation subject matter experts, both staff from within SANDAG as well as Caltrans and some of our local jurisdictions who are also participating in the CMCPs. And we're getting that group together next week to talk about different strategies and approaches that we want to be taking into consideration as we go through the process of developing all of these CMCPs. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments from the group. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. Does anyone have a question for Rachel? Okay, not seeing any. I know certainly I've got that meeting on my calendar for next week, and so looking forward to working on those. And certainly SANDAG had done a lot of work in the past identifying the interchanges that needed basically active transportation retrofits as part of the last regional plan. And it was part of the unfunded scenarios, but that was a good compilation of, as you're moving through each corridor, looking at each interchange as something that needs to be corrected from the past. And Stefan has his hand up.
Thanks, Everett. Rachel, I just wanted to offer, if there, as you go through this, you find some corridors that you think might be of particular interest to people riding bikes, that I would like to invite you or who's ever the corridor plan manager to present to the Bike Coalition's Advocacy Committee at some point. That would be a venue for you to get some community input, and most likely at that point it would still be a Zoom meeting, so easy to do.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you. Do you have a regularly scheduled meeting?
They're every other month, and so the next one is in November.
Okay.
So January, March.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Let's see, an attendee. None. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask what SB1 meant.
Yeah, so SB1 is Senate Bill 1, and it has a variety of transportation funds that are state funds. So that's what that refers to. So we're looking to complete the CMCP documents in order to be competitive and eligible for certain state funding pots of money.
Thank you.
I think that's it. So excellent. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right, and moving along, item number 6, Stefan with the statewide active transportation policies update, a report from CalBike.
Thank you, Everett. I'm happy to be here and see some familiar faces and names that I perhaps haven't run into in a little while. I think many of you probably know California Bicycle Coalition, or CalBike, a statewide bike advocacy organization. I'm on the board of directors there. And a while back, several months now ago, we hatched the idea of me bringing a report on statewide legislation that would be of interest to people working in the active transportation arena. And since then, one of the things that has significantly affected that legislative agenda, like everything else in our world these days, is the COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of the legislative initiatives that were active when we first proposed this got kind of put on the table until next year. But I think they're still instructive. I'll talk about them a little bit and maybe to spur some discussion about what might be interesting legislation for the next legislative session. So I am going to share my screen here. Let's see. So if you're a policy wonk and you want to know what's going on in Sacramento around this, a good place to do that is at the CalBike website. So calbike.org/legislative-watch. So this is the 2020 Legislative Watch page, and it lists all the bills that CalBike was either sponsoring or following in the 2020 legislative session. The page actually is not quite up to date, but I'll fill you in on what's going on. And you can see that the first tier of projects there were 2 that CalBike was actively working on and supporting. The first one, Senate Bill 288 by Wiener, is something I'll come back to, comprehensive CEQA exemption for sustainable transportation projects. That's the only bill that on this list that can survive the reordering of legislative priorities to focus on COVID-19. There also was a bill that CalBike was opposing that would have imposed restrictions on micromobility devices. And at CalBike, we thought those were too extreme, and so we were in opposition. And then the rest of these bills were all kind of tabled until next year. And some of the more interesting ones that I'll highlight, AB 3153 would have allowed affordable housing developers to reduce their car parking spaces by providing bike parking and car share spaces. And then there was a bill to provide free youth transit passes. That'll come back next year. And then the other one that's was kind of a small ask for the legislature, but interesting for those of us in the bike advocacy community, was what the SB 945 from Beale called the Farhand Reach, or sometimes called the Dutch Reach. And the purpose of this bill was to get the Department of Motor Vehicles to promote the practice of using your far hand to open your car door. And the reason for that, for those of you who aren't familiar with the concept, is that as you reach across to open the car door, you're turning so that you can look behind you and see if there are any approaching bike riders. And so to avoid opening your car door into a bike rider. Another one that I'll mention, because it was by a local legislator, AB 2667 from Borna Horvath, was a bill to incentivize electric bike purchases. And this has been a focus at CalBike for quite some time. We were quite pleased to see the county institute a program here. You can look for that to reappear in the future as a statewide initiative to get incentives either from air quality funds or other sources to provide incentives for people to buy electric bikes. Okay, so turning back to SB 288 from Wiener, this was a fairly significant bill because it exempts from environmental review requirements a number of sustainable transportation projects, including all bikeway projects as defined in the code 890.4, I believe it is, where the different classifications of bikeways are identified in state law. And so this doesn't come without any requirements. There are still some public review or public outreach requirements with it, but it allows for constructions of bike lanes, cycle tracks, other projects in public right-of-way exempt from CEQA. And the idea of this is to speed up the delivery of these projects. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, this can be quite a long process for projects with that are designed to reduce the impact on environment from travel. So it was a fairly significant change, and we're hoping that going forward, it will have a very positive impact on the delivery of active transportation projects. Also included in this bill are a number of different public transit kinds of projects, including repurposing of roadways to provide for bus lanes and such. So it's pretty far-reaching, and as I said, we hope it'll advance the timing on delivering of the sustainable transportation projects. Going forward to next year, let's see, I will stop sharing. We're looking at continuing some of these initiatives. As I said, the electric bike incentives. We'd like to see some reforms in the street design manual to make it easier to implement projects and to add additional different kinds of projects. And then also, I think many of us, whether you're in public service or involved with a non-governmental organization or just in our private lives, a lot of us are thinking about how best to respond to this moment in our country's history around the issues of social justice and equity, especially as regards to law enforcement, because that's such a fraught issue right now. So what's happening within the bike advocacy community is a rethinking of how traffic enforcement is done in this country, because oftentimes traffic stops have led to consequences beyond the the impact of the traffic violation that that a person gets stopped for, particularly for people of color. And we know there have been studies that show that people of color are stopped more often, whether it's, you know, a tail light or that, or something rather innocuous, and then situations escalate. And so how do we deal with that? One of the most significant changes in the advocacy world is, you know, we always talked about the 3, 4, 5 E's: education, engineering, enforcement, encouragement. Well, bike advocates are dropping enforcement as a strategy for increasing active transportation, just to kind of avoid that. So there could be a number of ways to approach this, making some innocuous behaviors that are illegal legal, or other kinds of law enforcement reform. So that's on the table as well for future potential legislation. I think the residential bike parking encouragement will be back. And then, you know, the Complete Streets agenda has been an important part of the bike advocacy agenda for some time now. I think we've made really a significant amount of progress in that. And I want to call out Caltrans in particular for the strides they've made in recent years, dedicating in this recently over $100 million, or $100 million, I guess it is, out of their State Highway Operations Protection Program for active transportation projects. But I think you'll continue to see bike advocates kind of staying on this issue and encouraging governmental agencies to prioritize active transportation projects and roadway safety projects through funding sources like the SHOP, or at the local level, it might be gas tax or SB1 funds. So you can expect to see that on the agenda for the future going forward. So that's an overview of what's happened in the last year and a quick look at what might be happening in the future. And with that, I'll stop and take questions.
Great, thank you, Stefan. Any questions for Stefan? Has everyone reserved a Cal Bike license plate yet? They need more of those ordered.
Yeah,
a lot more.
I will just correct you. I mean, Cal Bike certainly is a proponent of the California Bicycle License Plate Program, but it's actually a project of the Department of Public Health.
Oh, okay, right.
So
they're certainly helping spread the word.
Right, yeah, we are promoting it, and I'm going to see if I should be able to find a picture of it, but if you haven't seen it, oh, here it is.
They have a whole nother year. But,
yeah, there's a whole nother year, but so.
Okay.
Yeah, go to the, you can go to the Cal Bike website and sign up for that to get your Cal Bike license.
Any other questions for Stefan from members of the audience in addition to the committee? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Stefan. I think certainly the CEQA one that did pass this year, we'll have to see how that is able to be put to good use by jurisdictions approving projects. All right, we will move on then to item number 7, the 2021 Performance Management Rule 1 Safety Target Setting with Sam. Sam, are you here and available?
I am, and I think I remembered to unmute myself.
Yep, you look good, thanks.
All right, going to share a screen. Looks like, crossing my fingers, technology is on my side for at least this moment.
Yep, we can see it. I can see it.
Thank you, Everett. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. This presentation, this item number 7, in your agenda, I think starting on page around 13, it's really getting to setting safety targets. And this is an annual effort. It's a requirement from Federal Highway Administration. And I want to start this off with a little bit of context that this is one piece of safety. SANDAG continues to work with Caltrans and Federal Highway Administration on other initiatives as well. So we have the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, which was finalized recently and now has a 4-year implementation phase. There's the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and now there's an implementation plan for that, which is under development right now and will be annual. So there's a lot of other pieces. This item before us today is specifically focusing on the federal requirement of setting annual targets. So I wanted to add that piece in there to give some context. By way of background, Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, went through a rulemaking process. They set up essentially a structure of performance measures looking at observed data in different areas. And the one we're looking at today is this Performance Management Rule 1 on fatalities and serious injuries. From that rule, Federal Highway Administration developed 5 performance measures. So we have the number and rate of fatalities, and the rate is based on 100 million vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. We have the number and rate of serious injuries. And then the last one on the slide there is a combined measure for non-motorized, and it's fatalities and serious injuries together. The data to be used and the methodology to be used was all defined in the rule. It's not something that there's options on. It specifies how this has to be worked out. Caltrans has already gone through their process to develop the 2021 statewide targets. The question really before us that I'd like to get Active Transportation's insights are, should we continue our process of supporting the statewide target, which is one option, or developing our own targets? In the past, we've stayed with supporting the statewide targets, and that's still the staff recommendation at this point. And I'll go through the reason why that is up to this, that we understand from the data at this point. So this slide is also included in your agenda packet, I believe on page 14. It has the 5 performance measures, and then it has the numeric target from Caltrans. You'll see some decimals on there. It's because it's a 5-year rolling average for the numeric targets. And then that column on the far right is the percent reduction that Caltrans has applied to come up with their target. And the way they did that is they looked at trends. They looked at their most recently available observed data, which was the change between 17 and 18, and applied kind of what the percent difference was. And for fatalities, they saw a 2.9% reduction. They applied that going forward to arrive at their target for 2021. There's a gap in available data. So we're setting targets for 2021, but we still do not have final data for 2019 or 2020. For serious injuries, that same approach was applied. In this case, the change in percent they saw was a 1.3 reduction. And then for non-motorized, so looking at pedestrian and cyclist, they applied it equally for fatalities and serious injuries to get their target value. The next few slides go over the San Diego region and relative to the state to give us a better sense of the history and what's happening across our region and the state. And the charts are structured the same. What we see in the bars are the annual values. Blue is for Caltrans, or statewide, I should say. These are the statewide values. And orange is for the San Diego region. The lines are the 5-year rolling average. Towards the right of the chart, you'll see, they probably look like really small green dots right now, not meant to be an eye test, but they're pretty small on there. Those are the targets. So we have targets from 2018, 2019, and 2020 that have been established, and SANDAG has supported those statewide targets. 2021 is a slightly different color green, and that's the one that we're talking about today. Looking at this chart, it's really tough to tell how the San Diego region is doing relative to the state because it's absolute numbers. The state's big, San Diego region is a smaller proportion of it. So one way we look at this is the proportion by population. So the following chart looks at the San Diego's region population in a dashed line in black, it's about 8.4%, roughly speaking. Whereas the number of fatalities in this bright orange line, these are the annual fatality values, has stayed below that 8.4%, as has the 5-year rolling average, which is that lighter orange line. So relative to statewide values, the region is doing comparatively well. Based on that approach, that has been staff's recommendation to continue to support the statewide target because we're doing relatively well in these areas. And this is true for the other performance measures as well, the similar kind of graph. For fatalities by VMT, or vehicle miles traveled, this is already normalized by those mile values. So it's a little easier to see the difference between the San Diego region, again in orange, and the statewide values in blue. And the San Diego region is doing well in this regard as well. For serious injuries, we can actually see here, again, the difference, but we can see some of the targets in 2018 that statewide, we did not meet those targets. And we anticipate that in 2019, that'll be the same issue when the final values come out. Again, if I did this, show the chart for proportion by population, it would be similar to the first one I showed you, but for brevity, I'm gonna go to the rate value for serious injuries. Again, we can see here the San Diego region in orange is a little bit closer to the statewide average, but still performing well and under the statewide numbers. And then for this group in particular, the non-motorized, so the bicyclists and pedestrian serious injuries and fatalities. This one I did want to show the proportion chart. So again, here in the black dashed line is the proportion of the San Diego region's population relative to the state. The bright orange line is the annual value. So we can see we eclipsed the statewide, our percent of population in 2014, and that was the only year. But the 5-year rolling average, which is what we're required to look at for setting targets, has always stayed underneath, or has consistently stayed underneath that 8.4%. So again, this is the 4th round of target setting, starting in 2018, now we're in 2021. These are based on calendar years, and in the past 3 rounds, we've elected to support the statewide target. By not supporting a state, or excuse me, by supporting the statewide target, the region doesn't need to come up with its own values, do the own process for that. We would need to submit documentation to Caltrans with the what's the SANDAG is going to go forward with. And also, as far as what happens with those values, they're highlighted in as far as the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which is essentially a CIP for transportation. We need to highlight what projects support the target. And then in the regional plan, we need to include the target and essentially have a section describing our progress towards achieving the target. As far as next steps, going to continue to do outreach to the working groups and also the policy advisory committees. By the end of February, we need to provide documentation to Caltrans about SANDAG's position. And then through 2021, those planning and programming documents that are produced, the regional plan and the RTIP, will have the necessary documentation about the projects and how we're supporting the targets in the end. That's all I had for presentation day. I'm happy to take any comments or questions the group may have.
Great, thank you, Sam. I saw some comments and questions in the chat. Would those people like to address those to Sam now? So that way everyone can hear.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
The stats for bicycle and pedestrian serious injury and crashes, fatalities, seems to be just a number, not a rate. Especially in 2020, as we've seen apparently huge increases in the amount of bicycling. We may also see increases in crashes and fatalities, but if it's unrelated to the participation, it's a skewed number. So is there an effort to try to establish a rate?
That's a great comment, Jim. Thank you. I appreciate that. The methodology that we're required to use for this particular effort is specified in the rule, and this is following that. But I understand your comment about the exposure piece. We need to know how much people are out cycling and walking to see, what facilities are operating at a higher level, or which ones are underperforming relative to how much people are using them. So those kind of analyses, I think, are going to be better suited for a smaller piece, whether that be a local roadway safety plan. Getting into those kind of values is where we can tackle that issue. These were written to be applied nationwide. And I think areas really nationwide are struggling with understanding how much active transportation usage is happening on local public roadways or on any public roadways. We don't have a great sense, but there's a lot of effort, a lot of energy going into that. I don't think we've quite solved it though. But to answer your question, it doesn't play into this, unfortunately. I think there's other venues where we can tackle it more.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, Sam, was this seems just to be generally probably all roadways within the county. So state highways, local roads.
Yeah, in general, if you can drive it, it's on there. So it
all-
includes, everything. Even private streets that are not gated are included.
Okay, so yeah,
So it will be accessible.
A quick interruption. That does not include bikeway facilities that you may not drive a vehicle on, such as bike paths.
Correct. So the data sources for these crashes are the Fatality Analysis Reporting System, FARS, and then also SWITRS, the Statewide Integrated. I blanked on the acronym, but I believe this group is fairly familiar with it. Generally, it involves a crash with a vehicle, with a motorized vehicle, is how those data are gathered. There may be some instances where it could be bicycle on bicycle, where an officer is called to the scene and then it would be reported, but that's going to be more the extreme event than the norm event.
And Sam, I had one more. If you could go back just a couple slides, just to where the rates and the targets were.
The table?
Yeah, any of those ones illustrates it.
Right.
Probably forward. So it seems the goal rates are increasing.
That is a good question. So and these have been the Caltrans statewide targets, are what we showcase here in those green diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
Targets can be set in any number of ways. Federal Highway Administration has not specified on purpose how to set targets. They want states and regions to go about their own process to figure it out. Some states have gone aspirational right away and they say like, hey, we're going for 0. But then there's challenges with that as well, as far as not meeting those targets. Others have gone with trend. Others have gone with anticipated changes based on programming. This most recent year is based on trend from previous data.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier on in this process, from I think it was 2019 target setting, it was more aspirational. It was like getting to 0 by 2050. So the goal setting process within Caltrans has changed a few times. And so that's why we kind of see these upticks, but also many of them being based on data themselves. And as you see these bars fluctuate from year to year, that's been influencing the resulting target. So I guess there's two pieces going into that. One is, what is the thought process going into the target? Is it aspirational, looking at just the trend data or some other influence? And then also what the most recent crash history is as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting process. So it sounds like also that SANDAG has an opportunity, or the region does, to make our own or follow along with that same generic one that they go back and forth on.
Yeah. So that is what point we're at right now.
Yeah, Sam, this is Chris. What's your time frame on working on this? Because this, obviously it's a very significant kind of core issues to what our job is.
Mm-hmm.
But the data, I mean, the goals are just within the margin of errors. It doesn't, to me, honestly, it doesn't really, I know we're following the statewide, and this is a big conversation, but the goal, I mean, it's practically inconsequential. There's no, it's almost random. I mean, well, there's that too, but I mean, 1.9% or 2.3%, whatever it was, like, that's, there's obviously there's more fluctuation year by year. It's like, what are you actually doing? So, I mean, this is, I don't know, this is a pretty fundamental issue, and I know there are all kinds of things that tie into this, but it's a really good one. And I think this group, and maybe along with SANTAG and CTAC, would be a good conversation for a future meeting to really kind of dive into the safety issue and bring the other elements on how this is affecting, how the goals and whether you reach them, how that ties into funding and whatnot. So I'm not sure where we are in the process or we're on this, but is there, like, our next meeting probably is until, I don't know, help me out, Josh, or we're off schedule now. So it's, 3 or 4 months away, probably, realistically. So I don't know if that's something that is helpful for you now, or we should really kind of plan for this a little bit more in advance for the next go around.
So 2 answers to that. So right now the schedule is to go to the board. This item does go to the board for adoption, and it's scheduled for January.
Yeah. Okay.
Within Caltrans headquarters, there's been some adjustments recently as far as how to approach safety. And with the new director, there's been some changes in that as well. Those are in process right now, and I'm very curious to see how that plays out. But I think there might be some meaningful difference for next year that might add some additional context to help this conversation. The insights that I have at this point is that Caltrans wants to move more towards a anticipated change based on what projects you are doing. So it's really tying in what the funding is, what you're doing with the funding, and what you anticipate to see to make that nexus a little bit stronger, which will be an interesting change. And I think a positive one as well. It'll be a tough struggle to get there, but that's the insights I have at this point of where I think the statewide will be going. And I think if they're able to achieve that, that'll help us as well.
Sam, this is Howard at City Oceanside. Establishing the goals and objectives are fine. The real issue, though, of course, is what are we actually doing to reduce these injuries and fatalities? How many cities have a Vision Zero program, for instance? How active are they? How active is the traffic engineering groups of all these cities looking at each individual fatality or injury, and what can be done to alleviate those? It doesn't seem like, at least to me, that we're really doing a great job at that at this point. You can set an objective and a goal and hope you reduce it, but the question is, how do you go about that? And that's really the question that I think we need to really understand of how do we do this.
That's a good point, Howard. And I think that's where the state wants to transition to more the anticipated effects of programmed efforts. But as I mentioned when I started this out, this is really focused on a federal mandate to set annual targets, but there's a lot of other ongoing efforts that really address what we all want to get to, which is seeing better results. This is just setting targets, and then we are monitoring how we are doing on those targets to try and give us feedback of, are we making a change? And if not, then we need to potentially look back and see what we can do differently. That's really the structure of this. But getting to your point, Howard, local roadway safety plans, jurisdictions have or are developing that as well to be competitive with funding highway safety improvement programming in future rounds. So there is many other pieces ongoing that help address this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. And then, one more from Stefan, and then we'll try to move along with the rest of our agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Everett. Just briefly, I kind of following up on what Howard said, that I can appreciate how Caltrans is trying to respond to this requirement, but it seems to me like they've got it backwards, that the targets should not be based on proposed projects, but that aspirational goals should define what the projects are and try to get to the targets that you want to reach, which increasingly across the country and around the world, it's zero. So we have a long way to go. Thanks.
Great. Cool. Excellent. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. And we've got 20 minutes left in our meeting, so we're going to power through the rest of the agenda. Danny, are you ready for an update on Georgia Mead?
Yes, I'm here. I'm going to share my screen. Another click. There it goes. Do you guys see that?
Yes.
All right. So, yeah, thank you, everybody. I'm Danny Vay. Natalie Cushman is also here. She's with SANDAG's outreach team, helping out on all the Go by Bike, the Bikeway program at SANDAG. So I have an update on the Georgia Mead and Landis Bikeway project, the construction that's ongoing. And I'll just jump right into it. So this is part of the SANDAG's early action program, and the Georgia Mead and Landis bikeways are 6.5 miles of bikeways in the North Park and Mid-City communities. It's that 6.5 miles is part of that 16.1 miles that are under construction. And you can see the program is quickly transitioning from design into construction. And, just give us a few more months and we'll check some more projects off and get those into the project complete. And you'll see this this chart kind of shift to the right here. So the Georgia Mead and Landis, there's, it's kind of a, it's a little bit of a different bikeway project. It's not a class 1 facility like our coastal rail trail or inland rail trail, but it's not a protected bikeway that we're seeing on 4th and 5th Avenues. This is an urban bikeway that's on our streets that are parallel to major arterials. So Mead is 1 block north of El Cajon Boulevard, and Landis is just a few blocks south of University, and they continue east-west all through North Park and the Mid-City area.
Uh-oh.
Did we lose you, Danny?
You're frozen, Danny. Danny's been having some internet issues, I know. Shoot, I wish I could.
Danny, can you click? Can you hear us?
Uh-oh.
Or are you just gone?
Yeah. Natalie, do you want to just kind of run with it?
Yes.
Do you have the PowerPoint that you could put up too?
Yeah, I wonder if I can put it up. One moment.
I don't know. We're tight on time, so
I know.
know how long Danny's going to be stuck.
Let's see if I can run it instead.
So hopefully some of you guys who live around here have been able to ride on the parts that are complete. That's taking shape. Bits and pieces are the big construction parts are being done, and we still have kind of final striping, signage, and some other things and landscaping that will kind of finish off. Let me know.
Hey guys, I'm back. Can you?
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear that? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So yeah. So here's we got neighbor traffic circles. We got bend outs. I'll just move along. We can get into those in more detail if there's questions. But we originally set to go to present to you guys in March, and then of course things happened. But the good news is we've got a lot more progress, obviously, over the summer. So the pictures on the left are what it looked like in March, and we had pieces of a half of a circle done, and now we have the full circle done. primarily complete, and some landscaping put in and open to public. And here's just another shot of progress since March. So I was happy to show these complete pictures. So a little bit thankful for that delay. This picture here shows all 9 traffic circles that have been completed to date. It's about halfway done. We still got another 9 to go. And these are kind of the critical path construction items. They take the longest we're now doing full closures of the intersection for construction. And we're making great progress on these. So other improvements, other than the traffic circles, we got a whole bunch of other traffic calming. You can see a raised crosswalk right here next to one of the elementary schools that's under construction. We've got some traffic signal work. We've got curb extensions in several locations. We have a whole bunch of paving. We're going to slurry seal the entire corridor, some pavement rehab. We're adding a bunch of speed cushions, of course, signs and striping, and streetlight upgrades all throughout the corridor. So we have a lot of stuff underway. The other thing too are all the other ancillary items that you don't typically think of when you think about a bike project, but when you're in there and you're touching storm drain inlets that are not standard and need to be upgraded, guess what? We're going in there and we're fixing those things. The boxes where these construction workers are standing in is a BMP, so this is for stormwater, and it's basically a concrete tub with some pipes in it that help drain, and the water can. This is what it looks like when they're done. So there's water kind of flows into the curb and filters through that material and those plants and helps clean the water before it goes into the storm drain system. And I think I'll hand it over to Natalie if she's on.
I'm here. So I think one of the other questions that we wanted to answer was how we're doing outreach to the public about these projects in particular, and how are we talking about how these are so much more than just paint on the street, not just a bike lane, but a comprehensive improvement to improve the experience for people who are biking, as well as people who are using other mobility modes or may have disabilities or are walking through these neighborhoods in San Diego's urban core. So we were out at Bicyclist last year, just about a year ago, letting people know construction was going to be starting soon. It started at the end of December. And so we were, doing outreach. We have our rendering boards to show the traffic circles and the bend out features, and just answering questions, letting people know a little bit more about the project. At the bottom, this is the Landis corridor. This is in our fact sheet. So this is a handout we would have had then, but it's also on our website so people can see, what's involved in the project. So the different symbols and colors identify all those different features Danny was showing you pictures of and mentioning. They highlight how much more it is than just a bike project. A lot of big public works improvements. And then we've been doing a lot of social media messaging, which you see on the left there. And that kind of talks about, now you can bike, walk, skate, scoot, and roll on through some of the completed traffic circles. Highlighting community identity, which we've done with sandblasting designs based on neighborhood architectural styles. So just talking about all those things that make the projects that much better for everyone, whether you're biking, walking, or driving too, making the streets safer and slowing down traffic. And then next slide, Danny. And then a month ago, we were out at one of the completed traffic circles. We wanted to make a media availability. So we had every single news station in San Diego come out. They said it was one of their busiest events they'd gone to in months during the pandemic. We were highlighting, the recent increase in bike ridership across the region between March and August was up 42%. On Landis Street specifically, I think it was around 12%. So we were, highlighting that data and showing the progress and improvements we've been making through the project, only having started in December, and we've already constructed half of the traffic circles that'll be built as part of these two projects. So you see Hassan, our executive director, in the lower left corner, did some interviews. One of the KUSI reporters got on a bike and did a shot. And then I don't know if we have the clip to play or not. I don't know if it'll work.
SANDAG is celebrating. They say they're making progress in making City of San Diego streets safer. SANDAG, the San Diego Association of Governments, has completed 8 new neighborhood traffic circles for the Georgia, Meade, and Landis Bikeway projects. This one's in North Park at the intersection of Utah and Landis streets. SANDAG hopes it prevents issues between drivers and people walking and biking in the neighborhood.
There's communities that have walkable and bikeable places are communities that are sustainable. It becomes part of the community's landscape. Therefore, we believe we need to invest more.
There are 10 more traffic circles and several other components of the projects still to be completed.
So we had lots of coverage like that. We were really happy with the positive coverage and that we had a lot to say and a lot to show for as little time that we've really been out there. Even though construction is pretty impactful, we've been moving and making a lot of progress, mostly staying on time too. And I don't know if I have any other slides.
Yeah, and I think I just want to mention that, we're about, almost 40% complete, 40% complete with the project right now, and still on track to be fully open to the public by spring 2022. We might see certain segments, particularly the western pieces, fully open up a little bit sooner than the eastern sections, but we're making great progress, and just stay tuned to our website and our social media for all the latest on construction, and specifically about detours and as we open up different construction sites and things like that. But I think that concludes the presentation, and we're happy to answer questions, and thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Danny and Natalie. Quick question from Nicole. Go ahead.
Thanks, Everett. I'll be real quick, and I appreciate the staff report and excited to ride around them yesterday. And I do understand all the issues with permitting and getting maintenance, but it is, I just want to be on record that it is a little disappointing that this holistic, wonderful traffic calming project didn't really, until your last slide, take an accountability of really capturing water on that downslope into the roundabout and providing some shade trees as part of climate action plan goals. But I understand all the issues, and I appreciate the project moving forward.
Great, thank you.
A quick question.
Yes, Jim.
Next part of the project, as I recall, is to do some striping changes between intersections, which is going to impact parking. Are you prepared to deal with the anticipated complaints?
Yeah, I mean, Jim, I think we already have red curbed at the intersections that we construct. So whenever we open up a new construction site, you'll see the construction fences go up, and that obviously blocks off all the parking there. But when we open it up to public, it's red curb where it is. But across all of Meade and all of Landis, there's not wholesale red curbing or loss of parking. So there'll be buffered bike lanes in between those intersections. And yeah, so I think we've already seen some new red curb out there, and we've got Natalie that's answers the emails and the hotline, and yes, we are prepared for any complaints that come in, of course.
So Natalie gets hazard pay?
People
I
are
hope so.
just looking for more information. Sometimes they don't, some people are like, oh, I heard you're getting rid of all of the parking on my street, which definitely isn't the case. We want to make the street safe for everyone, and we want to minimize parking loss where possible. But like Danny said, we've already done a lot of those parking spot removals at the intersections where the major infrastructure has gone in. So the parking or the striping changes will probably have temporary impacts, but won't have as many of those long-term impacts. And we've been doing a lot of that communication with the public, especially the most nearby residents at these intersections where we've been closed for 4 to 6 months at a time, building them. We're in pretty frequent communication, but we have open channels, and we're happy to hear from the community.
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful project.
Okay, Nicole, one more? Or did you lower your hand? Okay. Okay, thank you, Danny and Natalie. Chris Kluth, with 5 minutes left, what should we try to achieve? Next on the agenda, I confirmed with Alyssa, she will go next round. I know you said you could do your survey via email. I think Josh's data collection could probably do the same. And then we probably don't have time for Kristen's. We'll probably have to table that one. So should we proceed?
Yeah, let's go with the, is Vanessa?
Yeah, Vanessa is still ready.
Yeah, let's hit, we haven't heard from Caltrans for a while, so let's do that item.
This is Kristen, and mine's 3 minutes long, and it's sort of time sensitive. So if there's time, if people don't mind staying on 3 minutes after 12, I would love it to go after.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Sure.
Let us know. Okay, Vanessa, you're up.
Okay, hi Everett, hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me to present. So I actually have just a few quick slides regarding the district's active transportation plan for Caltrans. So I can go over those quickly, and I think that should give Kristen enough time to also go over her item, which she just mentioned is time sensitive as well. So I'll be mindful of that and go quickly through my presentation. So give me one quick second. Just going to share my screen. Haven't done this through Zoom yet, so bear with me. Oh. Okay. Okay, so again, thank you so much for inviting me over to speak. I know that a lot of the folks that are here in the SANDAG's Active Transportation Working Group also attend our Caltrans Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting, and a lot of the members also in these two meetings overlap with our Caltrans Active Transportation Plan working group. So a lot of you may have already seen this presentation, but for those who are not familiar with it and have not been involved with our Caltrans Active Transportation Plan, I just wanted to mention that.
Vanessa, I think you're on we see your presenter slides.
Oh, okay.
You want to switch it to the full screen one?
Okay. I'm not sure. Sorry about that. Let's see if I can do this. Okay.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, thank you. So let's see. Yes, so for those who haven't been involved with the process, I just wanted to highlight that each district across the state is focusing on developing district-specific active transportation plans to meet each one of those districts' needs. And all of those plans are centered around meeting the strategies and objectives as called out in the statewide bicycle and pedestrian plan, which was released back in 2017. And in this plan, aside from all of the different list of strategies, objectives, and policies that are being championed by the state to reduce greenhouse gases and expand the bicycle and pedestrian networks, particularly within Caltrans right-of-way, we are centering also the purpose of developing these plans so as to identify location-based needs along the Caltrans right-of-way, create new connections, especially in those areas where there are gaps between the Caltrans right-of-way, right? So you may have bicycle lanes outside of the right-of-way, but within Caltrans, there is a clear gap. So we are looking to working with our stakeholders, advocates, to identify where those gaps are located, and then eventually develop a prioritized list of needs to better assess how to address those issues and potential gaps in the system. And then through that, we are looking to strengthening our partnerships and eventually also developing performance measures to better maintain and evaluate how to meet these needs. And all of this is centered around the focus areas of looking at improving locations through safety, mobility, preserving our assets, and also social equity. And at the end, we will have a map-based tool that our planners will be able to use internally to collect this information and be able to share information with our partners. So when Rachel was talking about the CMCPs, this kind of brought to mind that for that type of effort and any other effort ongoing for our local agencies, we will be able to share information in terms of assets that we have identified as existing or proposed within the Caltrans right-of-way. And from that, we will be creating a prioritized list of needs, like I mentioned, and all of this will be wrapped up into an existing conditions report and a final plan. And just so that you let the group know here, we have been working on collecting data. We will be releasing a survey sometime this fall to gather more information, more input from our general public as well. And all of this will go into a gaps and barriers analysis. And this December 3rd, we are looking to getting together again with our working group to dive a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of how Caltrans can improve, particularly our district, in implementing active transportation projects. And later, when we have the survey, we will engage in our public engagement efforts and so on. So these gray boxes are what the work that we have ahead. So I won't go too much into that, but we do look forward to continuing to come to these meetings and provide more information as we move in through the different stages of our plan. And again, I mentioned that there's going to be a survey being released, which members of the public and our partners will be able to access to essentially put pins on a map and indicate levels of concern for bicycling or walking. And people will have the capability to add essentially an open comment on an observed issue. And from there, we internally will take the pins and essentially develop a prioritized list of areas that we are identifying as having the most areas of concern. And once ready, we will also send our partners here in this group a link to our website, which will provide more information about the stages of our project and also other projects that are ongoing within the Caltrans right-of-way for active transportation. So I believe that is all that I have. I kind of went really fast through it. So I hope I covered enough information. So if anyone has questions or has any comments or just would like to find out more information that I perhaps blew past through today, please feel free to email me and I can share any information or just bring you up to speed or let you know more about the working group that we will be convening this December 3rd. So I'm not sure if anyone has questions.
Great, thank you, Vanessa. I think in the interest of time, we'll ask people to get in touch with you as there'll be further opportunities for that. So thank you very much.
Sure, no problem.
So, because we need to maintain our quorum before the meeting ends. So with that, thank you everyone for sticking around, and let's try to get through Kristen's item for time sensitivity purposes.
Awesome. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about the Active Living Planning and Policy Services City of Vista project, a project of the County of San Diego Health and Human Services Agency. The County of San Diego Health and Human Services Agency receives funding from the United States Department of Agriculture through the California Department of Public Health for the CalFresh Healthy Living Program. This is what funds the Active Living Planning and Policy Services VISTA project. The project goals are to improve the likelihood that residents who have low incomes will make healthy food choices and choose physically active lifestyles. The county recognizes that where a person lives affects their quality of life and any positive or negative health outcomes. So where you live quite literally determines how healthy you are. That is why for phase 2, the current phase of the project, the county has chosen to focus on advancing policies, plans, or placemaking changes that will address key barriers to active living and or healthy eating among those living in communities with low income. The county has contracted with my firm, Alta Planning Design, to provide these services. Part 1 is providing active transportation planning services to the City of Vista and Vista Community Clinic. Part 2 is providing active transportation, active living, public health, and planning technical assistance to San Diego County jurisdictions. That includes all of you. We've been very busy over the last 2 months working with Vista and Vista Community Clinic on a community-driven effort where we have provided trainings, walk audits, recommendations, and plans based on community input that the city can turn around and implement or obtain funding. Part 2 provides technical assistance to the region as an extension of county staff. Examples of this technical assistance include providing technical assistance related to active transportation, active living, and or health and planning, present at forum staff meetings for decision makers or others, participate in active transportation, safe routes to school, sustainable transportation, technical advisory committees, provide feedback on reports, studies, plans, and or policies, especially as related to health, and provide limited grant writing support. I went through this super fast. Thank you for sticking around. If you want to learn more how we can help your jurisdiction, your city, please contact me at kristenhockham@altago.com.
Great, thank you, Kristen. How long is that program going to be running for? How long will...
Thanks for asking. We've got 2 more years, so there's lots of time even to help with active transportation planning grants or, active programs or sustainable transportation planning grants, especially as it's related to health.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm sure we'll be able to invite you back for a status update sometime in the future on projects you've worked on and if you've had any engagement from other jurisdictions.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay, and with that, we appreciate everyone sticking around. It's 12:06. I think we'll adjourn this meeting and bring these additional items back. If you have any further questions for SANDAG staff, I think everyone can reach out to them. Anything else from anybody before we go?
Just real quick on item 12 for future agenda items. If you have ideas or requests, just email those to me and we can compile with some other stuff that we have going on. Consider those for next time, stuff that fits together. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Look at East Mountain View, or is that West Mountain View, Jim?
North Mountain View.
North Mountain View. All right, thank you everyone. Have a good day. We'll see you on March 11th, 2021.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Eric, got a quick question, brother.
Yeah, I can stop. I can stay here. I'm gonna stop recording.
So one of my questions for the assignment is how many committee members were there and what